After a long day of fruitless searching, Bernard the Rogue says goodnight to his adventuring party, turns the key to his humble room at the tavern, and collapses onto the bed. The party has been hired by the city's mayor to take down a cult, a group of fanatics who have become increasingly problematic. These cultists are doing a good job at covering their tracks. Bernard is particularly frustrated, as is the player controlling him, due to some bad dice rolls squandering his attempts to gather evidence.
I'm working on about an hour and a half sleep over the past 3 days, and I'm still trying to remain courteous.
Exhausted, Bernard places a dagger under his pillow and then falls into a restless sleep. Soon it is nightfall, and the locked window of this third-story room creaks open. The sound of claws on the windowsill awakens Bernard, who quickly pops out of bed, dagger in hand. Silence. The window is open, but nobody is there. Bernard slowly lowers his blade, rubs his eyes, and walks to the window to close it. "Stay your blade, vagabond," a gravelly voice spoke from the shadows. "I come with an offer." Bernard quickly turns and scans the room. On a high shelf above the dresser, he sees 2 red eyes staring back at him. Before he can decide whether to attack or flee, the hunched entity extends a small, clawed hand, which is clutching a piece of parchment.
Something magical and full of wonder. It's called a contract.
The text upon the parchment glows a dull orange. After a few heartbeats, Bernard breaks the silence. "Who are you?" "I am one who knows your quarry." The horned figure grinned. "I am one who can show you to their wretched hive." Those freaks in the cult. The red eyes did not so much as blink. "Indeed." "Tell me." It was not a question. "Everything." The imp's bat-like wings flexed as it released the contract, which floated on its own accord across the room to Bernard. "For a price." Hello. In this video, I'll be discussing deals monsters can offer D&D parties. Established DMs likely know their way around this topic, but for newer DMs, I'd like to offer some friendly advice. Magical deals can spark interesting roleplay, be a unique way for the party to circumvent a challenge, or a fun way to add tension to your session. A deal might even kick off your story. So, what monsters can offer a magical deal? The short answer is, a lot of them. Probably the most widely known deal makers in D&D would be devils. A deal with the devil is at the center of many stories and fables. If you're unfamiliar with D&D, let's clarify that devils and demons are 2 completely different things. While both are fiends, demons are chaotic and primal beings spawned from the endless maze of the abyss, more likely to eat your soul than to bargain for it. Devils, on the other hand, are lawful evil creatures that follow a rigid hierarchy. They inhabit the equivalent of hell in D&D. To improve their station, a devil needs souls. To get souls, they make deals. To make deals, they interact with mortals and draw up contracts. Hell has its own courthouse. It's a whole thing.
So tell you what, I've got a piece of paper here. Don't worry about the details. I just need you to sign right here at the bottom.
While devils are mainly interested in the souls of mortals they interact with, that doesn't have to limit the deals they can make.
Let's make a deal.
You want my soul?
Your soul? Heavens, no!
In the intro scenario, Bernard is looking to complete a quest. He is frustrated that he hasn't been more helpful and feels like he is letting the party down. And while this provides motivation, a devil knows that Bernard's not going to give up his soul for it. Just like the DM knows that the player is not going to do that to their character for something of that low stakes. But there is potential here for some sort of deal to be struck. And who knows, maybe this rogue will need a bigger favor later on, something he'd be willing to bet his soul on. So this devil approaches Bernard after watching the party drop the ball for a few days, hoping to catch him in a moment of desperation. That's well and good for NPC motivation, but what would the deal actually look like? When thinking about deals a monster might offer, we can ask 4 questions. What can the monster offer? What can the monster ask for? Does the monster have a hidden agenda? How will the deal be delivered? DMs might be tempted to offer some very potent benefits to get a player to say yes. Try to avoid this, as it can get out of hand pretty fast, especially if your players like to haggle. It should be a choice. Don't lock your story behind this deal. So, let's set some ground rules. I don't know your table, but probably avoid offering anything that might kill the fun, anything that would disrupt the party dynamic, or anything that would permanently boost one player disproportionately to the others. In the case of devils, I think it's fitting that they can only offer things they can guarantee they are just as lawful as they are evil, and likewise they will only ask for things from the other party, the players in this case, can provide. Some examples of what this imp might offer: the location of the cult's hideout, a secret entrance, the name of one of the cultists, the name of one of the leaders, or some imps as backup. If your players like to haggle, you could even do this. After the roleplay is concluded, have the character roll a charisma skill check to see if they can convince the deal maker to sweeten the deal, rewarding a high roll with rewards based on the DCs. Adjust them to taste, obviously.
You understand that's not how contracts work, right?
Haggling or not, these are all outcomes the entire party would benefit from. These are reasonable and self-contained benefits that help out on the current adventure. So, what can a monster reasonably ask for?
Your firstborn son.
Just a sec. Here you go. Wow.
Once again, I don't know your table, but avoid asking for anything that would be considered a character assassination, or anything that would incite inter-party conflict. I once had a character sign a contract without looking at it, and it compelled him to unalive the father of the party's wizard. This pretty much unraveled the campaign. Don't do this. So what could the imp ask of Bernard in this case? A small favor, defacing a statue of a god in the town park, delivering special chalk to a drop-off point, the freeing of a warlock captured by the cult, the location and capture of a creature that is defaulted on a deal, or just straight up gold, especially if the devil serves mammon or a similar greedy devil. None of these will break up an adventuring party, they might even make for a fun adventure later on. This deal is honestly pretty low stakes. So why is the imp even bothering with Bernard here? Ulterior motives and hidden agendas. For an imp, a devil of lower standing, it's okay to offer cherry deals just to get people used to the idea of making them. To normalize dealing with devils so that they will drop their guard and maybe come back for more.
Whoops! Guess this soul belongs to me now.
Remember how I explained the differences between devils and demons? Well, they don't like each other. It's kill on sight, as a matter of fact. But beyond that, the imp is trying to use the adventuring party to deal a blow to the demon's interest by proxy. This is just one example of a hidden agenda which can add another wrinkle to an encounter and inform the role-playing of a monster. Perhaps the most important aspect of a deal is presentation. We present a deal based on our answers to the previous 3 questions plus the type of monster we are running. The delivery for a devil offering a deal can go a couple of ways. You can do a physical contract with the actual deal written out, you can do a facsimile, or you can just describe it. I've done all 3 and my personal favorite was the physical contract. However, you can do a combination of all 3, have a loose facsimile of the contract for them to sign in the moment, then later circle back with the actual proper written out contract. Deal 2, the invisible fuse. A disgusting half-slurp, half-crunch sound fills the musty seaside cavern. The needle-like teeth and blubbery blue lips of Oshana the Sea Hag work to pull out the fleshy innards of a still wriggling Chul, which she sucks down her gullet before discarding the shelled carcass into a pool of brine nearby. Across from her, the heroes try not to vomit.
So you see,
Derek the cleric continued,
we've come seeking your help in sorting out our good friend here.
He rested a hand on his friend's armored shoulder. A few weeks prior, Franklin the fighter had confessed that prior to meeting the party, he had no memory whatsoever. A troubling blank slate that bothered him more with each passing day. The party had since taken him to every wizard, cleric, and healer they could find. But no matter what they tried, the memories could not be restored. Then, Ruby the Ranger remembered that a few years ago her old adventuring party had made a deal with a sea hag, who had helped them out of a similar jam. And so the party now found themselves sitting on a piece of driftwood in a cold, dark cave, interrupting Oshana's dinner.
Can you restore him?
Oshana shrugged her massive barnacle-encrusted shoulders. Even sitting, she loomed over the party. Though her bulk filled the cavern, she spoke in but a whisper.
Perhaps I may, perhaps I might, but the tide of interest fades.
She freed a piece of flesh from between her fangs and tossed it into her gullet.
Stitch not the answer upon a mind's eye, unless a worthy trade.
Ruby had given them all fair warning that this was coming. Wordlessly, the heroes began to pull out magical items. Weapons, armor, baubles, jewelry, potions, a purse filled with coin, and other wondrous items that they had cobbled together. Oshana's massive, cycloptic eye, luminous beneath a veil of fishing net and kelp, darted to each item in turn, examining them. She clacked the lobster-like claws of her secondary arms as she appraised the offering. Derek and Franklin exchanged a nervous look. The sea hag's gills flared in what might have been a huff of disappointment, and she shook her head.
Shiny trinkets have more, craving what not had before.
Her gaze locked on Franklin. What the hell does that mean? Barb the Barbarian queried with wide eyes. Oshana's eye flared a bright blue. The waters bubbled and churned and the room went cold, and the ocean's breeze picked up within the cavern. The heroes were flung and scattered throughout the cavern's many adjoining chambers, except for Franklin, who floated before Oshana, transfixed. Her voice remained a whisper, but Franklin heard every word.
When behold the blackened sea, tossing stones instead of 3, the closer toss will speak for thee. If lesser arcs return to me, should to this pact agree, find who holds thy memory.
Over the roar of the wind, Derek shouted to Franklin to wait for him, before a loose lobster cage slammed into him and cast him into the darkness. Franklin nodded, his eyes glowing blue. Holding on for dear life, the others could only look on in horror as Franklin closed his eyes, leaned in, and kissed Oshana full on the lips. So this deal was a little bit different. I call it the invisible fuse because it's unclear when the negative consequence will kick in or what it even is. This exchange is interesting due to the terms of the deal not being clear. This is a hag after all. For those who don't know, hags are another classic deal-making monster from mythology. They come in many different flavors, but the gist is this. An angry old crone who dwells in solitude, or sometimes in a coven. Usually a fey creature, but not always.
Hag.
I beg your pardon?
Evil old woman considered frightful or ugly. It's 12 down.
Her life has been artificially extended due to making a deal or obtaining magical power. They enjoy making others suffer, usually by making poison deals that will always end up with the other party in worse shape. And the older they get, the more powerful they become.
Don't you look lovely?
Most think me grotesque. An old hag with one eye.
Oh no, not me.
The offer they put forward was to restore Franklin's memory, something only they could do. What they asked for came in the form of a mysterious riddle that sounded vaguely bad. I'll spoil the riddle so you can see where the DM would be coming from in this scenario. In exchange for your memories, you will roll death saving throws with disadvantage. If you die, you belong to Oshana. She might bring you back as a sea creature or an NPC warlock working for her. This is something the DM and player would hash out at the time. I'm sure if the player was super attached to the character, they could work something out with the DM, but there should be some negative consequence. This is where trust in the DM comes in. Trust that the player's fun won't be ruined if they take this deal. Remember, the consequence can be a bit more harsh here than with the imp, and that's because the party sought out the hag to make the deal.
I can help you.
You can, can't you?
The hidden agenda for the hag is a bit more personal. The hag wants to make people suffer. Whatever deal they make, it's poisoned in some way.
You blew it! You totally screwed yourself! Nobody enters my home and leaves in one piece!
A riddle is fitting for a hag, and I recommend preparing something in advance. If you're unable to do so, maybe you rolled the encounter on a table, it's fine to just ask for a favor. Should you prepare something, I recommend whispering the hag's riddle to the player or sending them a private message. Leave it up to them to disclose it with the group, should they so choose. If you're playing in person, you could, with permission, draw a fake glyph in red marker on the player's wrist, with the same glyph appearing on their character. Great for immersion. Also, here are some other examples of deals you can have your hag offer a member of the party, and a corresponding consequence. The hag could say, "Offer me a hand with a problem I'm having," and the consequence would be your character loses their hand. "Help me see the outside world." As a consequence, each time that character rolls initiative, they have a 50% chance of being blinded for their first turn. If they fail, the Hag sees through their eyes for that turn. Some of these are way harsher than others. You know what your players can handle better than I do. So, while the Imp is a straightforward deal to help speedrun a quest and the Hag is a mysterious deal that is bound to go wrong, there are a ton of different monsters you can use to make magical deals with the players. All you really need is a problem and a magic-wielding monster. Then you determine the offer, the ask, ulterior motives, and how it will be presented. Simple. What kind of magical deals have you encountered in your games? Let me know in the comments below. These deals are both one-offs, but what about an ongoing partnership? Well, that is basically what the Warlock class is, so we'll save that for another video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something, were entertained, or ideally both.